Olga, it's so great to be here with you on our first episode of A Dose of Truth, which really it was born from us meeting in Rome and you asking to talk to me, and we did this short interview, and our chemistry was so good, and you're such a great interviewer, and you bring these topics to people in a very simple, matter-of-fact way that's super necessary. So that's why we decided to call it A Dose of Truth. It's not too long. These are 30 minutes or less. But we really want to transmit what's going on in the background and how this is creating what we see out in the world. So tell me welcome, first of all, and where do we want to start today?
Thank you, Max, so much for your kind words and introduction. I would like to add a little bit that, yes, you're absolutely right that my goal in this, not my goal, I would say, my interest specifically in the show with you as my friend and a holder of very important and unique knowledge is really to show people, because the way you're talking to the audience is also both and unique and simple, and that's what we need now in this very deep and complex subject. We need simplicity, and exactly in this show in 20-30 minutes we will try and we will explain various amount of topic, and we will start with mind control today, because also from my perspective, I'm an SRA researcher for many years now. My friends are survivors, and I know the topic quite good, I would say. But still, I remember those days years ago when I couldn't understand at all what is this all about, like mind control. For me, it was complete something crazy, I would say. What do you mean mind control? How can you control someone? It was something that I still remember the page in the book when I saw it the first time, and then when I started to research and dig into the subject. So I think that's the perfect topic for us to start. So Max, could you please explain what is mind control, and maybe if you think that it's relative, how it's connected to satanic ritual abuse. Thank you.
Sure. Well, right off the bat, so satanic ritual abuse was indeed the first form of mind control. And then what evolved and added to it is psychiatry, military, and then today we have technology. So now mind control is at a very, very advanced state. And what mind control essentially is, it's socially engineering a way of seeing reality in a person's brain that is whatever the controllers want people to see reality as. So as an example, right around the end of World War II, the Tavistock Institute was created. And it was like a marriage between the military and eugenics movement and psychiatry. And they actually, if you go do your research, they have two stated goals: a one world global government and full control of the mind of humanity. Now, from the conversations you and I have had, unfortunately, it appears that they have achieved this objective quite well. And so what they have said is that they will do this by something that they called future shock. So what is that? That is the use of trauma and torture. So when you throw at the human brain trauma, torture, fear, stress, it decomposes the brain almost like someone goes into a vegetative state. And then they reconstruct, they reprogram the brain in the way that they want. So the main thing that they do is they suppress the truth when they reprogram, and they spread lies, misinformation. So the use of repetition and the use of fear are two basic tools of mind control. And they have done research studies that show if people hear the same lie repeated eight different authority figures. They will believe this to be the truth. And then once you put this in the brain, you've stressed the brain so that, it's like they create mass anxiety out there, like with the fake pandemic they created. And with mass anxiety, the brain is primed for mass suggestibility, mass hypnosis. So this is kind of how they have done this. This organization, the Tavistock Institute, was created to do this, okay? These are and then it has infiltrated, education, politics, military, intelligence, medicine. This agenda then is pushed through all these different societal institutions we have. And I can say a little more about that, but I'll just stop here for now.
Thank you, Max. Just for our Russian-speaking audience, because I say it like this, because there are so many materials in English, and that's what I'm searching for. Also now we can see in French and in German, obviously, because the roots we have a lot with the Nazis. But in Russian still, it's, I'm afraid, not so much. So when we talk about, for example, you mentioned tortures, we don't need horror shows here or sensations. It's not what we want. But what we want is to show the abyss where we are and how humans, especially children, are treated from the very early age, and not from the very early age, but also being in the womb and being in the fetuses. So being survivor by yourself, can you please describe a little bit what kind of tortures can be applied to start mind control person?
Yeah. And so what I always like to say is that what I'm about to describe as what was done to me and other satanic ritual abuse survivors individually is also applied at the collective level in a slightly different form. But so what's done to us is done to all of society. It's still the use of trauma, okay? So you're absolutely correct that when we're still in our mother's womb, we are one with our mother when we're in there. So we will feel everything that she feels. So, and the fetus in there, and so with satanic ritual abuse, they have done things like electric shock the pregnant woman's stomach. They have literally done some horrific things, like actually insert things inside to stress the baby, very loud music on the mother's pregnant belly, messages, repetitive messages to the baby in there. You are bad, you are this, you are that. So the programming begins of the mind in this case begins literally before the child is born. Okay. Then after the child is born, and this is something, they did to me, they immediately go to breaking attachment with the mother or the parental figures. This is really important because the attachment, that love bond that I'm just going to use loosely the word mother, okay, has with the infant, when mothers, the baby, you look at the baby, right? This kind of gazing and bonding is telling this infant who they are and that they're loved. And then it's that connection to the mother's body that's so important. In psychological studies, it's been found to be more important than food, the touch, the connection, So this is very protective for the human and the human mind. So the first order of business is to destroy attachment. So in my case, it was ritually done with me being in a crib and watching my mother be tied up and big flashing lights and very loud sounds, and then being spun by my ankle. So that spinning, creates a disorientation. And just the general torture of my mother to make her so depressed, and or she split into different personalities. So my experience as an infant from her would be, she either was so depressed that if I cried, she wouldn't come, so complete abandonment, or if she did come, she would be angry and then like hit me or whatever. So then it was abandonment and abuse. And then nevertheless, it's a natural human thing. I bonded with her, but it's a trauma bonding. And then through her own programming, she is also then programming me. So this begins in infancy. And one very important thing that these psychopaths who run the world know is that the best way to program a child is the sexual abuse of a child prior to the age of 5, when the brain is like in its nascent formation, like right at the beginning. This is a powerful, powerful tool to dissociate the mind and to have it creates a very compliant, malleable human, right? And if you think of how endemic sexual abuse is to society, forget satanic ritual abuse, just incest, just sexual abuse in general. There was studies in the 1980s, Diana Russell, I believe, a social worker, and she said 1 in 3 girls and 1 in 5 boys will have been sexually abused before the age of 18, but that's based on reported statistics. In my opinion, I would say it's probably 90% of women and maybe 80% of men. It's so in society on every level, and this is deliberate because this creates, we see today this, you and I, it's frustrating and astonishing, the apathy, the compliance, the absolute like lack of fight in people. But see, this is one very, very, very used technique. The sexual abuse of humanity creates a generational more and more and more compliant humans. So that's like almost like a generational form of mind control.
Thank you, Max. I think it's important also for our audience to know that you are not only a survivor of satanic rituals in Vatican and other places around the world, but you're also a professional psychologist who works with survivors and people with trauma for many, many years. So it means that things you're saying, they are not out of blue or not what you think. This is your direct and proper and in many cases personal experience. So I appreciate so much your openness and these details. So
Yeah.
we were speaking, and actually that you said the absolutely horrific compliance and the lack of fight, even the lack of desire to fight, or even the lack of thinking that one can fight. This is the result of multi-generational mind control. Can we put it this way somehow?
Yeah, yeah. And you mentioned, that I have studied psychology and all that, and this is true. We have to understand our history to understand our present moment. And of course, obviously, we're not looking at history at all. So what happens is, like in my case and in many other survivors' case, when the trauma, the shock, and that's what the Tavistock Institute knows, right? You shock the human so much, it's so traumatic, it creates a dissociation. It creates, the mind shatters, and the event, the experience is instantly put away, and there's amnesia for it because it's the only way to survive. Okay. So in this way, if all the trauma that I went through, some was still in my conscious mind, but a lot of the more horrific things, they had to be like split off and like put in a suitcase inside me somewhere, right? And this is actually done very deliberately by programmers. They create deliberately alters in people. This is how they can program children to become super soldiers or honeypots or assassins or whatever. So this mechanism that the human psyche has is a protective mechanism to endure the unendurable. It splits it off as a defense. Society collectively, historically, has done this exact same thing. So when the trauma happens to society, the wars and the 9/11s and the COVIDs and the past pandemics and all of these things are so stressful that the human collective mind also splits it off and puts it away. And then the dialectic of trauma is that it comes up and then it gets suppressed, and it comes up and then it gets suppressed. And so on a societal level with psychology, so many people have heard of Sigmund Freud and his famous Oedipal theory. Well, the truth is that prior to putting out that theory, in 1896, he put out a paper, The Etiology of Hysteria. In that time, it was called hysteria. They thought it was related to the uterus. He was the first person to talk to women and listen to them. And then he said, "Ooh, I discovered what this is. It's about child abuse. It's about sexual abuse, you know, and this is what's causing the trauma." Well, of course, this was not well received by those in power, by the elites. And so there was a lot of pushback. Again, the truth is coming out, push it back. He took it back. He recanted his true discovery, then replaced it with the Oedipal theory. Oh, no, actually, children fantasize about having sex with their relatives or their parents. They want this, they dream about this. So he established there's a form of mind control. He's an authority figure, he's a psychologist. He is telling you that children are sexual from birth, bullshit, okay, and that they want the sex and that they fantasize about it. So he's creating this perception that children are very seductive and they can go after adults and they want this stuff. So right there, that's a form of mind control, okay? So then he starts psychoanalysis, which is people would lie on a couch and go inward and talk about what was inside. He's ignoring the outer social reality of the world, right? So that's, again, completely erase that. And then throughout history, the trauma, it comes up in World War I. The soldiers come back, they're destroyed. They called it shell shock. That was, of course, blamed on the men. Oh, they're weak, you know. They didn't want an understanding of what something as horrible and traumatic as war will do to the human psyche. Then it comes back out in World War II. Then it's suppressed again. Then it's the movement of the 70s and 80s when it begins to be discussed, domestic violence, incest, you know. This awareness comes back of how many people are traumatized. Then it gets buried again, the False Memory Syndrome Foundation, which was staffed by these psychiatrists who worked with the CIA, who worked with mind control, who were pedophiles. They put out this false front of psychology again. Oh, therapists are implanting these things in people's minds. It's not true, you know, satanic panic, because now SRA is starting to come out into the public consciousness. Let's push it back down, okay? So you can see the parallel between the individual who has to suppress their memories and the society trying to suppress this truth about trauma. And all of this is, the backing of this is, again, mind control.
Thank you so much, Max, for such an explicit answer and explanation. I want to sum up a little bit what you have said, and you please correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm also, even though I'm in this topic deep now, but anyway, there are many gaps and it's really complex. So could you please tell, is it something like this? When we have trauma, through torture or through, it can be physical or mental or whatever is there, depends on the level. So trauma-based mind control, when it's applied to us or to, let's say, a person who is in a satanic ritual or in this environment, so that trauma creates a gap in the internal structure of the person, and this gap and that space is completely blank, it's empty. So there, the perpetrators, what can be the government, it can be the satanic ritual perpetrator or the caregivers, the handlers and so on. So there they put the information or the task which is need to be done or need to be thinking. So, and then it's closed. And so this information stays in the internal structure of the person. And according to this, now the new person is now reacts and thinks. Is it something like
Yes.
that?
Yes,
Okay.
it very much is something like that. The shock of the trauma creates that split, and then right there, they put the programs in right into the subconscious. And we have a conscious mind. If you have the image of an iceberg, that little bit of the tips above the water, that's the conscious mind. The big bulk of it underneath the water, that's the subconscious mind. That mind is what runs our thoughts and our behaviors without our knowledge. So they put the programming right in there. This is what television does. So think of the word television, vision, programming. They're literally telling you what it is. The frequency, the wave, when your brain watches something on television, it's a passive receiving, and the brainwave state is changed from your conscious one, so that actually you absorb all of that programming again straight into your subconscious. So this is exactly what you're saying. That's exactly correct. Yes.
Thank you so much, because as I have mentioned, the topic is so vast and so complex if you dig in. So this is like what is on the surface, and that might help our audience to really start to understand how mind control works, that it's not real possible or maybe possible. It's part of our reality totally and completely.
Yes.
And,
yes. And let me say something, Olga, because of what you just said. You said it's a totally and completely part of our reality. So we've talked about like the Tavistock Institute, like psychiatry, right? But this has infiltrated every cultural and societal institution. So think about it. You are born, you're little, you go to school. The educational system is mind controlling you in various ways deliberately, and this is an agenda from the top. So for example, in school, you learn the myth of authority, that you have to obey authority, that someone, the doctor, the teacher, the priest, the government knows more than you and has the right to tell you what you can and cannot do, and even today, what you can and cannot think. Okay, so there's a whole level of mind control as you go through the whole school system and then the university system, completely programming young people. And so it's very clever. So that's one level. Then you go to the whole medical system was created by the Rockefeller Foundation to create illness in the body, which then creates a weak mind, okay? And then nothing is ever cured. It's managed to profit. And the pharmaceuticals and the vaccines are very toxic to the body. Well, if you make the body sick and never quite functioning at the level, the mind is again going to be less powerful, less able to discern reality. So there's another form of mind control. Then you have religions, which again promote the myth of hierarchy and authority. You obey God, and it's a control mechanism. You're pumped with all these different programs in religion, mainly also that, like, I grew up in the Catholic religion, that you're born with sin. Like what? There's so many programs in that religion, I can't even mention them all. But that's the purpose of religions, Then the media is controlled by just a few people at the top of the hierarchy, but it's split up into all these different medias to give the illusion that it's independent, but it's not. So again, repetition of lies, of realities that they want you to believe. So then there's the media. Then connected to the media, you have entertainment like Hollywood, the famous one, but also music videos, also all these things. These people themselves, who are these actors and these musicians, are put through deliberate, like MK Ultra and other forms of mind control. Or, of course, they're told, like, you can only be famous if you obey what we tell you to do. So the product that's put out for the people in music and acting and all this is itself social engineering mind control, right? Then you add that they have poisoned our food. It's genetically modified. It's full of pesticides. The water has fluoride in it, which lowers your IQ. They spray those horrible chemtrails in the sky. The electromagnetic frequencies. Now cell towers are all around the planet, pulsing a frequency that lowers your level of consciousness and again puts your brain in a state of receiving the programming. When you consider all of that, every single aspect of our lives is mind controlling us. I think it's important to mention that.
Absolutely, Max. It's not only important, I would say it's vital. That's what I was also thinking when you were just numbering all these mind control techniques, which are, we are bombarded with that every single day from every corner in every country, and there is no exceptions. Of course, I mean, there are scales, somewhere less, somewhere more, but basically we can't say that it's, oh, okay, it's only Max is in America, so somewhere else, so it's there, or I'm currently in Spain, so it's in Europe. No, we can't say it like this anymore because it's everywhere. And once you open your eyes to see it, if you want to see it, because if you want a better future and better planet, that's not the time to live with the eyes shut closed, and down, because this is definitely not. So what I think we want to also transmit, that we really have to wake up from this mind control slumber, because these are, when we hear also sometimes, what I have met in my practice, that when I explain about SRA, satanic ritual abuse, or mind control, people start to realize what is that. But for them, the next stage is like, oh, okay, but it's only for satanists or for the people who are born in satanic family. Well, yes and no, because the difference between people like me who were not born in the cult and people like you who did, is simple. It just, I was not mind controlled from the very, very beginning. But anyway, I can't say that I'm not mind controlled, because of course I am, because we all are, because my parents had television. Of course, they watched it, they watched news, things, what they call news. So basically, you can't say that you are free of mind control, that if you are not brought into satanic family. That's not the case at all. Am I right?
You're right, because let me point out to you that satanic rituals are done on the human population as a whole. What do you think 9/11 was? It was a satanic ritual. Those towers were rigged with bombs, they were explosives, they were blown up. And right there is a sacrifice to Lucifer. It's fire and blood. A lot of people died. This is what they want. And then, of course, the fear and the insecurity it generates creates in the population, again, this stress, this anxiety, it breaks down, and then they come in with their solution to save you, which was passing in the United States, was passing the Patriot Act, which people don't even know that they did this. This actually changed a lot of things, including made American citizens enemy combatants. So you can be thrown in a hole with no, you cannot, no lawyer, no nothing. And it legalized spying and all the cameras now we have everywhere, and the data under the name of terrorism. They created this mental program again. So that ritual was a satanic ritual. COVID was a satanic ritual. Okay. Every war is a satanic ritual. Every entertainment show, halftime show at the Super Bowl, the Grammys, the Olympic opening and closing ceremonies. Look at it. Satanic rituals. Okay. You cannot exclusively say that I went through satanic ritual abuse and you did not, because we grew up in this reality together.
Thank you, Max. I think this is a very, very important point. Yeah, because sometimes I'm saying, well, I'm not a survivor, my friends are, but when you look at the bigger scales, I think we're already at the point in the history where we all become survivors. It doesn't matter if we are tortured from the birth or not, but just that's what you were explaining us, the trauma-based mind control. That's what's happening in the world very blatantly in the last years, because this is complete trauma-based. What we see constant wars. They're just endless. There's just no end to that, like no over the horizon. We don't see when it's over. And when one is over, in a couple of years, there are some other starts. And so this is trauma-based, deliberately created society,
Yeah.
which will and already is very easily controlled. Is it right?
Yes. And I mean, so, okay, so maybe the people in, and let's pick a war zone now, you know, like in the Middle East and in Palestine, these people were not necessarily put through satanic ritual abuse, but they're being satanically ritual abused by every day they wake up with bombs. They're people they love are killed. They have no food. They are imprisoned, you know. That's the same thing. It's the same thing. So I think, you know, we should have another conversation about Satanism and that whole ideology. It's a religion, really, and I can explain that to you because I think we don't have time here, but I think it's connected, and it's important to understand the relationship between the two. So yes, no, absolutely. You cannot be born in this reality as controlled as it is from the moment you come. I mean, even your parents are mind controlled, so they're going to pass it on to you. You cannot exist in this reality, no matter how good your childhood is, and not be raised in a soup of mind control. And the good news is, once you begin to see that and understand that, the truth is light. Truth is a frequency. Okay, once you start to hear the truth, which they keep from you, and then they tell you lies on top of it, this breaks the mind control. So I was deliberately mind controlled throughout my childhood, and some of it didn't work really, but some of it I broke later. You can break the mind control. This is the good news. And indeed we must, because otherwise our minds, and you know, the thought creates behavior, creates reality. And we can next time talk about this under the idea of Satanism. But this is so important to break the mind control, because otherwise we humans are creating this horrible reality. Like our mind is like a puppet string, and we're creating by our thoughts and our behaviors a reality that's destructive to us. So if we break the mind control, we don't have to do that anymore.
Thank you much, Max. Yes, it's exactly. It's not about blaming ourselves or call ourselves sinners or whatever, but it's about taking responsibility for our thoughts, for our lifestyle, for how we see the reality, and to see through this mind control lens. For me, the key word is always responsibility, and we really have to grow up and to see what's going on around.
Yes, yes, absolutely. So I hope this is helpful, Olga, a little bit of a touching upon mind control. It's really not some mysterious thing like they show in movies. It's quite basic. And it's a reality of our planet right now and the human race.
Yes, huge gratitude, Max, for your knowledge and experience, and see you next time. God is with us.
All right, so let's talk about Satanism next time and how it connects with this topic. And thank you, Olga, again, for for your role as a truth teller in this world. I think we share this role, and this is what we need more and more people to do to break the global mind control. So I look forward to our next talk.
Likewise, thank you.